Hey, I'm going live already. I just went live early. I went
Oh,
live early. This is pretty. What do you
I,
think?
I think it's all right.
All
I'm
right.
glad you told me because I was just about to sing the song that was in my head. Anywho,
Um, what song was it?
it's not even a song. It was like the Flintstones thing. It's like the Yabba Dabba Doo.
Oh,
Okay. Anywho,
all right.
I wish we weren't live early now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's special edition. I actually don't know that we are live, even though you just said it. I don't think it lets us go live on.
Oh, now we're live,
Yeah, I
I
think
think.
it. So maybe people didn't even see that. Um, but welcome to this week's session. This is one that I'm pretty excited about. I know you say not to hype things up, but I think this is a training session that has the ability to get people to just see one, maybe there's just one adjustment that you can make to your interview that has a really big impact. Oh, actually, and before we even get into that, for those of you who don't know us, oh, thanks, Howie. My name is Katie. I am a coach at Career Sprout, and this is our founder, whatever side of the screen he's on, Gaurav Valani. As some may
Welcome, everyone. Man, Katie's right. We try not to hype up these LinkedIn lives, um, bec- but when we talk about interviews and how to prep for interviews, and it's a topic that I get really excited about because Katie's right. Like every single time someone, actually, never mind. I'm not even gonna say anything. I think like we're just gonna sort of
let's just
dive
dive
into
into
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let's do that.
Let's dive into it because
Um,
this is one we have a lot to cover. So I do want to make sure we have enough time for us to be able to hit on everything. Oh, wait, but before we do, very important. I have one joke and a backup joke just in case needed. Can I do that before we dive into the details?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Joke number one, and you guys can let me know if we need to use the backup joke. Otherwise, I'll save it for next week. It
Let's
is.
have hold on. Let's have Maya and Jody this week be our resident. Uh, they tell you if the joke is good, or they tell you if you need the backup.
Okay.
Can we
Okay.
do that, Maya and Jody?
I
Go
trust Maya.
ahead.
All right. Jody, I trust you too. Okay. The joke is after an unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer decide to try a career in music?
After a unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer try a career in music?
Yeah,
I don't know.
because he had a ton of sick beats.
Wait, that was good.
That's a good one.
That was who gave you that?
It's from a secret website that I have.
Oh, okay. That was good. Maya, Jody, what do you think? Do we need the backup?
Giving me too much power.
I trust
Oh,
Maya.
Jody said done.
That meaning like she's gonna give you the thing.
Yeah,
There's
like I
always a
only
lag
needed
here.
one. Yeah. Are you getting these from Gen AI? Oh no, but I bet there's some good ones on there. All right, I think we're good.
All right, all right. Oh,
Okay.
look, Subi said she liked it. I would actually
Oh,
give that a pretty good. Hey,
all right. I'll save the next one for next week.
awesome. All right. Hey,
So,
maybe. Oh,
Irene,
dang,
listen, Irene.
Irene is cold blooded. It's okay.
Listen, Linda. All right. So let's get into the extra good stuff. That was the
Okay,
good stuff. Now we're
let's
getting
do
into
it.
the extra good stuff. Before we dive into these three frameworks, um, I think what's important, we started to talk about this a little bit, is a lot of people when they come to their interviews, they end up struggling a little bit because they're not speaking naturally. They're trying to be somebody that they're not. They're not being authentic to who they are. And oftentimes they're focusing more on, okay, I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing, or they're focusing on what to say, aka like searching chat gpt or getting a chat gpt answer to say it, and they're forgetting that it's not just what you say. Arguably more important than that is how you say it. I don't know if anybody else has a mom who told them that regularly, that it wasn't what you say, or if you have kids, you know there's a big difference in how they say it. And so there's little subtle things that my hope for today is, as we go through these three frameworks, I don't want you to try to absorb everything and try to implement everything all at once, but being able to pick one thing, and maybe it's just one thing that's doing a lot of damage to you right now. And when you go into your next interview, or you're going into your practice reps, if you don't have an interview scheduled, I just want you focusing on trying to implement, picking out one thing and implementing just one thing in your next practice rounds or your next interview. If you guys can do that, we've seen it happen time and time again where it can make all the difference. So pick your favorite one, whether it's because you like Batman or you're a car person, whatever the thing is, and that'll make more sense in a minute. Pick your favorite one and practice that.
Yeah. And I'll give you some context too. And I created a post about this last week, but this is why it's because of what I talked about last week that we're doing this here. Show of hands, virtual hands, if you guys want to comment hands. How many times have you ever gone on an interview and it was for a role you've done, you would crush it, you have the experience, you've used the technologies, all all the things, and then the hiring manager or the recruiter comes back and says, actually, we went with somebody who we feel is better qualified.
Yep.
They say who we feel is better qualified. Anyone here experienced that? If you have, let us know. I have, literally many a times.
Happened to me at my stand-up comedian interview.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Someone just told me to keep my day job.
Yeah, that's facts. So if you've heard that, think about what happened, right? Like, you literally went on the interview. So if you went on the interview, they actually thought you were qualified. Then somewhere along the way, they just stopped believing that you were qualified. And something that happens a lot is hiring managers will tell recruiters, I really like this candidate, but I want to see more. And then the recruiter will say, oh, wait, so you like the candidate? The hiring manager says yes. They're like, you think this person's qualified? Hiring manager says yes. And they're like, you still want to see more candidates? And the hiring manager says yes. And that drives recruiters nuts. It drives me nuts. I'm assuming it drives you nuts. And they're like, well, what are you looking for? And then the hiring manager will say, I don't know. I'll know it when I see it. And so the crazy thing is, they don't even freaking know what they're looking for. And the reason they don't know what they're looking for, and trust me, we've done a million interview preps to this point. I've sat in on a million interviews. Katie's heard a million interviews, and I'm obviously exaggerating here. The reason they say I'll know it when I see it is because what they're looking for is actually a feeling. But you can't quantify feeling. Right? They're trying to feel something that they didn't feel the first time around. And so many job seekers get so caught up, like Katie was saying, in what to say, that they forget that it's equally, if not more important, on how they say it. It's because, and I'll relate this very much to a speech that you guys have heard, or like a great speech that you've heard, or a great speech that I've heard. What makes the speech great? It's what the person says and then how they say it. And it's because how they say it is what evokes a certain type of feeling. And so what typically hiring managers, recruiters, etc., are looking for when they interview you is a feeling of trust, or a feeling of like belief. Like they have to believe that, but you can't quantify belief. You can't quantify trust. So these frameworks will allow you to earn trust, build rapport, and also do it in a way that is so natural to you. And we are not opposed to the STAR format, but we do know that when people use the STAR format, they end up sounding robotic. And when you and then if you're getting answers from ChatGPT and then you're literally reciting an answer, ChatGPT is a robot, you're repeating what a robot said, therefore you sound like a robot. So these three frameworks, the goal is for you to be able to sound a lot more natural and earn that trust. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and hopefully this helps you. Cool. K-Mac, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you crushed it. Greg asked, for the best approach for people who are experiencing that. You're going to get 3 pretty good approaches, pretty
Yeah.
great approaches. How about that?
Hey, you know what I think is also cool? I think it's cool that people feel comfortable to tell you to keep your day job.
Do you?
I do. I actually think that this sort of like community that we have here,
Yeah.
for them to feel natural to say the types of things they say to us, I think is super cool. And I just want you guys to know, like, if you've been joining these, we really appreciate you guys. Like, this is one of the funnest things that we get to do.
Yeah.
That's not working with our clients. That's like the number one fun thing, but this is the second fun thing. And I just think that I just want to say we appreciate you guys so much for joining these, and welcome again, obviously. And now we can dive into it. All right. So let me set you up with this. I'm going to give you guys a question or a scenario, and I want you to respond with what the answer is once I ask the question. Okay. So here's the scenario. This is framework number 1, called the car mechanic. Okay. Let's assume that all of you here own a 1975 Mercedes SL, classic car, vintage, and this is one of your favorite prized possessions. You love the thing to death, right? Now, something goes wrong with the car. So you take it to 2 different mechanics. Mechanic number 1 says, Brad, the issue with your car is the radiator belt, and I can completely fix it. It'll be $5,000. So Brad says, cool. And then he takes it to a second mechanic for a second opinion. And that mechanic says, holy cow, Brad, you have a 1975 Mercedes SL. This is a fun fact. I actually grew up with this car. My dad had this car. It's the car I got my license in. I even took this car to prom. I've worked on this car at least 75 times in the last 5 years. I can tell you without a doubt, it's most likely going to be the radiator belt. But if you'd like, I can check this other part and this other part and this other part, because those parts typically have issues with this particular model. So that way I'll look at it, and if there's something wrong, I'll let you know. That way you don't experience any sort of issues in the future. Oh, and by the way, it'll cost $6,000. In this scenario, please type this in. Who would you go to? Who would you give it to? The first mechanic or the second mechanic? Ah, nice. Anyone else? Okay. Again, there's a lag here, but it's okay. If you said second mechanic, you would be right. Oh, I don't know anything about cars, Tom. Sorry. But, okay, but if you said mechanic number 2, it's not that you're right, actually. It's just what most people would say.
Yeah.
And so now think about why you would give it to the second mechanic. Why? It's because the second mechanic enjoys solving that problem more. Right? That person cares about your car, or at least express that they care about your car. And more importantly, they were way more enthusiastic to solve the problem that you're having more than the first mechanic, right? Now think about how this relates to interviews. And think about the higher up you go, the smaller the skill gap. And let me explain what that means. The higher up you go in positions, in salary, etc., 200K, 300, 400, 500K plus, the skill gap between you and the next 10 candidates that this company is interviewing is virtually this big. Usually it means all of you are good. So if all of you are good, then how does this company decide on who they want to hire or give the offer to? It's a feeling, right? And so what they're typically looking for when they're going to invest this kind of money into somebody is somebody who not only can do the job, just like car mechanic number 1 can do the job, but somebody who also expresses or showcases that they love doing this job or they love solving this problem. And not only that, they've solved this problem many times before. So now think about this when they ask you, why do you want to work here? Why this company? Why this position? In a scenario like this, most candidates typically will say, oh, I love the mission. This is a company I'm a big fan of. What else did they say, Katie?
Normally, it's just things like, hey, I think I'm perfect for this role because, I've worked on this 70 times before versus like I've enjoyed working on this thing.
Right. And so Hersharon, and I'm sorry if I said that name wrong. She said, how do you draw the line between being enthusiastic about the role and being overly excited? Being overly excited is, I love the role. I love this company. I would do anything to work here. I think I'd be so great here. These are all things that showcase being overly excited. But if you keep your response about why you love solving this problem, now you showcase genuine enthusiasm. You come across as car mechanic number 2. And I'll give you a very sample. So we just told you what most people say. We can give you a better response, right? So, and this is a response one of our clients gave before. She said, you know what's funny? I've been a program manager for the last 7.5 years, and I've had to work at that intersection between product and engineering during all 7 of those years. And I can understand why there's always usually why engineers and product butt heads a lot. It's because sometimes engineer feels like they're giving unrealistic requirements, unrealistic deadlines. They don't have the best, they're not given the best requirements. And then product on the other side is sometimes so high, have pie in the sky goals and visions that sometimes there's a disconnect between the two. And so I've noticed that problem, and I usually know that like the second we can solve that and get engineering and product to see eye to eye, typically we're able to work so harmoniously. We're able to deliver products really well. We put the customer in mind, and that therefore, if the customer is the customer experience is number one for us, and the requirements then are really clear and translatable, we build cool things. And when we build cool things, customers become happy. And that's a problem that I've learned how to solve over the years. And not only that, it's one that I've enjoyed so much. And I love being able to help the two teams work really well together. And I noticed that that's one of the things that was talked about in the job description. And I'd kind of like to hear from you. What is that relationship like right now between program and engineering? Or sorry, product and engineering? And if anything, what are some of the bottlenecks that you are hoping for someone like me to come in and solve?
Yeah. One
So
thing, just real quick, just if you notice, the overly excited is talking about all the things that you will love about this company and this team, this job. Being authentic and just talking about what you've enjoyed doing in the past that's relevant. It's just talk about the things that you've enjoyed versus being positive that you're going to love everything about this new job. That's the biggest distinction there.
yeah, that's really good. Um, and so anytime a company asks you, why do you want to work here? Don't worry so much about a script. Focus on why you like solving that problem. Because if you talk about why you like solving that problem, how you've solved that problem, and what you've helped or what the companies that you've worked for have achieved because you've solved that problem, what you say is not nearly as important, or it doesn't have to be this perfectly curated script, because when they hear your enthusiasm behind solving the problem, that evokes the feeling of trust and belief. Remember, those are the two things they can't quantify. It's the thing that they just have to feel. And anytime you or me or anyone here has ever talked to somebody who's selling something, the person we typically buy from is the one that we just believe cares more about our problem than the other person, right? So therefore, sometimes we don't mind paying just a little bit more because we trust that they'll take care of us or our problems or solve it with, respect, care, enthusiasm, empathy, etc. These are all beliefs. So we want to always keep it to, why do we enjoy solving this problem? How have we solved it in the past? And what have our teams or companies or whatever achieved because of us solving that problem? All right. That's framework number one, is the car mechanic. Okay. What's the next one that we're talking about, and why?
Good old Batman versus Superman. Because especially in this market, just being able to solve problems, as you were talking about, like the skill gap is this big. It's not enough just being able to solve problems for companies, or even saying that you've enjoyed solving those problems for companies. There's another component here that our friendly nerd will explain.
All right.
I was trying to think of something clever. I couldn't.
That's all good. All right. This next one is called Batman versus Superman. This is the one that, if you guys have ever attended one of my workshops in the past, you have heard this one. But if this is the first time you're joining this, hopefully you appreciate this. Okay. So Batman versus Superman. Why is it called this? And it's because I don't know if you guys, like Katie said, I am a nerd. I watch a lot of like DC movies, Marvel movies, etc. And when Batman versus Superman came out many years ago, the one with like Ben Affleck, remember that one? I was like always in the what's it called?
The forums.
The forums, the online forums, just reading up about it, trying to find Easter eggs. And one forum I came across, there was a poll. It was a poll that was asked. They said, who do you like more, Batman or Superman? And then everyone, or not everyone, but everyone got to vote. But the overwhelming result, I'd love for you to guess who it is, but I know there's a lag here. The overwhelming result was Batman. It was like 80-something% of the people who took the poll said Batman. And then it kind of went into like, well, why Batman? And then the overwhelming sort of response there was because Batman is human. Superman is not. Like, Superman was literally born perfect, right? The only thing that could kill Superman was kryptonite. He could run faster than everyone, which allowed him to kind of cheat in football games because he was a part of the football team. He could move the moon. He could like freaking do anything he wanted. Whereas Batman was vulnerable, just like me and you, right? He faced a lot of adversities. He lost his parents when he was younger. He was afraid of the dark. He was afraid of bats. He was afraid of all these things. And yet he overcame it, and he still chose to put his life on the line every single day, knowing he could die at any point because he's a human. It's because of the vulnerability that Batman has. And I think a lot of times when we go into interviews, we feel the need to come across as perfect, to come across as Superman. And we want, so like, and I'll give you an example in a second. But if you think about it, like, sometimes by trying to come across so perfect, we actually turn the other person off, right? But if we kind of talk about like where we failed throughout our career, what we've learned, how we learned it, how that helped us going forward, now we come across as human. And when we come across as human, we evoke a sense of empathy and even sympathy. And remember this, humans always hire humans. And so a lot of times when someone says, tell me about yourself, we always choose to just talk about like the things that we're so perfect at, because we think that that's what they want. And if we forget, like, shit, like we need to actually be human. So I'll give you a really good example of something we heard once. We had a client who was going in, I think for like a head of sales role or something like that. And so the person said, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And this candidate went right into saying, well, I'm the #1 salesperson on my team. I've built high-performing sales teams all throughout my career. I've learned basically every single strategy you can think of, like spin selling, this version of selling, yada, yada. And it's allowed me to just continuously grow all throughout my career. And by the way, I also read this other book. But have you read that book? It's about this thing, that thing. on sales, and the person was like, no. And that now the interviewer felt kind of dumb. And he's like, oh, you got to read it. It'll teach you this, it'll teach you that. And then the interviewer literally stopped the candidate and said, well, it sounds like you're perfect. Why do you want this job? Why don't you just stay where you're at? And I knew right there when I heard it that he lost the interview, and he did. Why did he lose it? Because he kept trying to sound too perfect. And the other person knows that they're not perfect, right? The interviewer is not perfect. No human's perfect. So if they're constantly trying to feel like this human is perfect, you're turning the interviewer off. So now there's a different way to say this, where you still get to exemplify your strengths, but you do it in a way that is so human. So one of the things we advise is trying to come across as Batman. So how we told him to respond to that going forward is something like this. And I'm gonna paraphrase it. I don't have like what we told him exactly, but we said try saying something like this. You know, I've been in sales for the last 9 years, and it's something that I've grown to love. But I got to tell you, if I'm being honest, when I started, I was horrible at it. I would be scared because I would be fearful of losing the sale. I would be nervous because I was talking to senior level executives who were going to buy. We're also selling, you know, $1 million, $5 million products and services, and like that just made me nervous. And so when I would approach these meetings in the beginning, I would stumble on my words. I would even sweat sometimes. And in the beginning, trust me, I lost more deals than I care to admit. And it was a humbling experience, to say the least. But thankfully, I had so many great mentors and leaders who didn't give up on me. They taught me about executive presence. They even taught me methods like box breathing to eliminate my nerves or calm my nerves. And what I learned from them too, more importantly than anything, was every time you approach a sales meeting, you approach it with a place of curiosity and empathy, and try to understand what their goals are, why they haven't been able to achieve their goals. What are they doing today that they love? What are they doing today that's not working? And the more information I was able to gather from them, the easier it was for me to be able to just focus on the solution. And if we had a product or service that we felt truly could solve their problems, I could talk about it in a much more organic and natural way. This way, I got rid of all the scripts and I just spoke from the heart, and I was able to earn their trust. I was able to build rapport quickly. Some of these people actually ended up becoming my good friends, but more importantly, we were able to close these deals. And it's these strategies that I learned that allowed me to later on in my career become the #1 salesperson on our team. And I have also been around such great leaders that I've been able to learn how to build these teams too. And in the last 3 years, I built the #1 sales team at our company. And that's how I've been able to do it. But I know you've been in sales also. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you if we have time, on how you've been able to build sales teams and what you've learned throughout your career as well. Whew. End scene. Thoughts, questions on that, K-Mac?
Oh, I think that was awesome. And I think now let's just loop in the car mechanic too. It's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. If you showed up to that and you were, oh yeah, I used to be really bad at sales, and your voice is shaking and you're super nervous, you're not being yourself, how you say that matters a whole lot here as well. You'll notice like he like made himself chuckle a couple times throughout it. He was just having a good time, like reminiscing almost on the path that he took to get here. And I think those little nuances, when you are practicing, it's really important that you're practicing those nuances as well, not just, again, the words that you're saying.
Yeah. Someone just said, is this for tell me about yourself? Yeah, it can be. It's the funny thing is, and that's a really good question, by the way, Olivia. You can apply this to tell me about yourself. Why this role? Also, you can apply it to some behavioral questions too. We talk about this term with our clients in our program called anchoring with vulnerability. anchoring with vulnerability we had a client named Dane Ben Dixon. I freaking love this. We kind of like adopted this from him. He didn't even know he was doing this. He's a chief product officer today, right? Super smart, working for a great company. Dane is. And he was one of the most humble people you'd ever meet. And a lot of times when they would ask him a question like, Dane, tell us how you would solve for this problem, right? He would start off like, gosh, I know there's probably a lot of really good ways to solve this. I'm not sure if mine's the best way, but I'll tell you what I've done. And then he'd give them like a really cool example. And then he'd use some version of the story here. And by the end of it, everyone would be like, wait, that's awesome. You know? And the reason they thought it was awesome was because he didn't say like, oh, I have the perfect way to solve that. He was like, I actually don't know if this is the right way. I'm sure there's a lot of good ways. So he anchored his response first with vulnerability. So it's kind of like, it's like under promise, over deliver kind of thing. It's that. So you can use this Batman versus Superman in multiple ways. It's essentially just anchoring your response with vulnerability, talking about past failures, talking about what you've learned, crediting your mentors so much here. And we can link the post that well, actually, I'll find it later. So that's that. K-Mac, anything else you want to add, or anything? Yeah, anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Is this helpful? I think maybe we should ask them just to gut check here.
Yeah,
Is this
sorry.
helpful for you guys? I know we're about to come up on time, so we might have to shorten the next framework a little bit. But if this is helpful for you guys, do you officially have a link for the workshop for
No.
next week?
Oh, let me share this. Hey guys, so as you're letting us know if this is helpful, if you missed this today, let me share my screen. So today I did make this announcement. Where is it? This is so next Thursday, I think it's the 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific, I'm bringing back my workshop. I was actually going to wait till April 15th after taxes, right? I was going to wait till April 15th, but it doesn't matter to do my next workshop. But now I'm going to do it next week instead. Please, if anybody is in here that has been to one of our workshops in the past, let us know what you think. This workshop is not going to be like our LinkedIn lives, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. No, I'm going to go live for 3 hours and literally teach you every single thing I know about the job search. This is who we're reserving it for, because this is who we have experience helping. So if you have experience in this, or you have experience that you think is transferable to the tech industry, which is like what we coach on, and you want to join this workshop, please let me know. And don't put it here, just DM me, or if we're not connected, please connect with me and let me know you're interested in the workshop. And then I will send you the link to that. We're reserving it to 100 seats because we've had workshops in the past where I've had like 500, 600, 700 people, and then I can't answer any questions. I can't go deep. So I limit it to 100 people. And then this is like how you and I can actually connect, and you can walk away knowing like what to actually do, how to do it, and make sure you're doing it well. And I even put like a few examples of what people had to say after joining this in the past. So if you've been to one of my workshops in the past, let me know what you think. Be honest. And if you'd like to join next Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific to 1 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, let me know and I can send you the link. Cool.
Yeah, somebody asked if there's a fee. Not a money fee, just a time investment for this one.
Yeah, these are always free, by the way. All right, so we're talking about PPSG next. K-Mac, do you want to tell us why we're talking about this?
This one, I don't know if anybody's ever heard like a lecture. Like, think of like your least favorite college professor who would just talk and talk and talk and talk. And even if they were talking about something that was very relevant to you, you weren't at all engaged. This goes hand in hand with, it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. This one is going to be what I would call like supercharge your star stories or your car or your Carl or your Marl, insert whatever like the newfangled thing is for interview frameworks or interview responses. This framework is the thing that I would say is the easiest to incorporate and has the biggest impact on how much rapport you're building with your interviewer and how engaged they stay throughout the interview.
Yes. Guys, I just put the link to the workshop announcement. It is free, and then in there it'll let you know how you can sign up. It's going to be, I'm going to send you a private link. So if you qualify, I did put the criteria there. If you qualify for that, just let me know and I'll send you a link, and try to do it quickly, because these workshops literally always gets filled up quick. Okay. Next, here's what we're talking about, called problem. The PPSG. This is the next framework. Okay. It's called PPSG, and it stands for this: problem, pain, solution, glory. Problem, pain, solution, glory. Why are we talking about this? Remember, if we go back to about 30 minutes ago, what we talked about was hiring managers are looking for a feeling of belief or a feeling of trust. Like, can they trust you? Do they believe you can come in here and solve the problems? But also, do you care about this, right? They want to know, do you care and can you do it? So it's a trust thing. And so when we use the STAR format, we, like I said before, end up sounding robotic. So I'd like for you to, if you still want to use the STAR format, that's fine. But I'm going to give you how this sounds instead. And there's two components we need to add. It's the pain and the glory at the end. So think about it like this, right? We had somebody get asked. This was one of our clients. She went in for a leadership role. And one of the questions they asked her was, tell us about a time you dealt with somebody who was underperforming, and how did you deal with that? Like somebody that reported into you, they were underperforming. How did you deal with that? And she said, yeah, sure. I was managing a team a long time ago at my last company, and I had to go out on maternity leave. And when I came back, I had somebody on my team who was underperforming, and my boss and the leadership team wanted me to fire her. And so what I did was, instead, I met with her and I put together a sort of like KPIs and metrics she needed to hit. And I worked with her on that. And then after about 3 weeks, we were able to overcome, her shortcomings, and we didn't end up firing her. And so that was what we did. We put together like KPIs. We hit those KPIs, and I worked with her on how to do it. And luckily, we didn't have to fire her. Not a bad answer, right? She literally answered what the person said. Hey, can you guys hear me? Just said, oh, yeah. Okay. So now think of that. She kind of gave you the STAR story, right? She said, situation was, I was on maternity leave. Someone on my team started underperforming. So I had to come back and I put together a plan of action to help her overcome some of the things she was underperforming on. And then as a result, and then the action was I met with her. And then the result was she ended up doing well and we didn't have to fire her. She hit the STAR example, right? Did that evoke any feeling of trust, belief, support, empathy, yada, yada? Not really. So here is where problem, pain, solution, glory comes in, that I think supercharges the STAR example. So here's how I would have said it. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. I've actually dealt with this a couple times throughout my career, and I'm not oblivious to having tough conversations when needed. So for example, at my last company, I left to go on maternity leave, and I had a team of 15 people that reported into me. And when I came back, one of my top performers, I found out from my leadership team and my boss, was underperforming big time. And what was shocking was they just wanted me to fire her right away. And I had to push back. And I'm a big believer in defending my team, especially if I trust them. And I said, just give me some time, please. I'm not going to fire her. I want to understand what's going on. So what I did first and foremost was I met with her. And in that meeting, I didn't go straight into numbers. I didn't go straight into like blaming her. I didn't tell her she was doing a shitty job. I asked her, I said, hey, listen, you've always done really well here. And lately your numbers have dipped a bit. I want to understand what's going on. What's just talk it through with me. Anything I can help you with? And she told me, and I'm not going to get into it here because it was very personal, but she was dealing with a lot of problems at home. And rather than make her feel even worse, I just told her, why don't you take a week off? And then when you come back, we can revisit this and figure out how we can get you back to performing the way you used to do. And what was super cool was she took that time off. And I could tell in that meeting when I suggested this, all of the stress and fear she was feeling around being fired completely wiped away. And she went home, she started like doing whatever she had to do. And when she came back, she was so receptive and open to guidance and feedback. And so what we did was we actually put together a plan, right? I told her, here are the KPIs that I want you to hit, very solvable. And I knew she was capable of doing it because she had been crushing it before. And then every single day, even though I had to work late, I met with her every single day to kind of see how she was doing, what problem she was dealing with, how we could tweak it. And better than anything, she got back to performing within like weeks. It didn't take months, didn't take anything, within weeks. Not only that, she actually brought in one of the highest paying clients we had seen in the last 16 months. It was the client Microsoft that she brought in. It was a $15 million deal. But that wasn't the cool part. What was even better than her bringing in this deal was to see how she got her confidence back. To see her also supporting other teammates. She started putting together trainings for her other teammates who were earlier in their careers. And then even like 15 months later, she ended up getting promoted and she left my team. And I was so bummed to see her leave, but I was so happy for her because she stepped into a leadership role herself. And what I learned from that whole experience was, don't go straight into the numbers. Approach it like from a place of curiosity. I want to understand what my teammates are going through and genuinely understand if there's a way we can solve that. And typically, this is the fastest way to earn trust, rapport. And then just, even if it means I have to work late sometimes, rolling up my sleeves and helping them actually achieve their goals. That's how I like to approach my leadership skills. And luckily, I had leaders like that myself. That's where I learned it from too. So I'm going to let K-Mac give her feedback in a second. But if you notice, what we talked about there was how this person felt. She was nervous. She was scared. She was underperforming. She thought she was going to get fired. That's the pain. And then we talked about the results just like you would in a star story, right? Which is like, she still achieved her goal. She met the metric. She didn't get fired. She even brought in a client. But the glory was she regained her confidence. She got promoted. She was training other team members. That's the glory. And remember, in these interviews, we're evoking a feeling of empathy, trust, all the things. So when we kind of shift away a little bit from star and go to problem, pain, solution, glory, it's the pain and the glory that helps you evoke the trust of the hiring manager. All right. So go ahead, K-Mac. Some of the people here are saying that was too long. And I would agree that it is. We could make that more concise. But keep this in mind. When you're telling a story, remember, data moves the mind, guys. Data always moves the mind. Stories move the heart. When you're telling a story, if sometimes if it goes a little over 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, it won't matter if it's evoking the feelings of trust, empathy, and all the things. Go
If you
ahead,
go
Kim.
back to, I think you kept it right around 3 minutes. A couple things to keep in mind. The person who finishes their response the fastest isn't the one who gets the offer, as a general rule. And
Yeah.
so oftentimes it's like, and I'm a numbers nerd, like you give me a number to hit and I'm going to be happy knowing that I hit the number. But if you can keep your responses around 3 minutes, and he was actually interviewing, he would get some practice reps in if that's a question that keeps coming up. And yeah, maybe he gets it a little bit closer to the 3 minute mark. But that response, even though the first one was only like 90 seconds, that response is what moves to offers in this type of a market. And so I think one of the adjustments that's been really helpful, at least for our clients and maybe somebody on here as well, is sometimes it's less about being perfect, because there's no such thing, and more about actually building relationships with people. And so if you're able to share a story that helps you build a relationship in this market, that's a really valuable thing, not only for offers, but also for you keeping your sanity during the job search process that can get a little crazy at times. And so I think sometimes just giving yourself a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of room to be a human will, if that, sometimes that's the only adjustment that needs to be made in these interview processes.
Yeah. Guys, authenticity wins all the time.
Yeah.
And Katie's right. Like people try, like we were just saying, you don't want to be Batman and try to sound so perfect because you'll turn the
Don't be
person
Superman.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or sorry, Superman. You want to be Batman because vulnerability, authenticity is typically what wins in these interviews at all levels. I hope you guys found this helpful. In next week's workshop, remember these LinkedIn lives, even though we love doing it, we only have so much time, so we can never go deep. In the workshop that I'm doing on Thursday, I'm keeping it 3 hours so that I can literally go as deep as I can. And I'm just going to link it here one more time for all of you. So if you meet the criteria that's in this post, send me a DM or just comment right there, and then I will send you the link to the workshop. It's going to be 3 hours next Thursday. I'm going to give you everything I know. And I'm not going to sell you crap.
Talking about not being perfect, whoever created that link and name rhymes with matey, I only made it 2 hours. My apologies on that. Block your calendar for an extra hour on there for anybody who's registering.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of time for Q&A too. So we'll do this. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. Let us know if this was helpful. As always, we always appreciate you guys for joining these things and giving us your time and trusting us with this stuff. And we will be back next Wednesday for sure. And then for some of you, hopefully, I will see you next Thursday as well. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.